Media and Public Perceptions of the Police, examining the impact of race and personal experience. This was research conducted by Valerie Callanan and Jared Rosenberger.
The main purpose of this article was to show how consumption of media affects public opinion of the police. To see how crime-related media affects individuals, they tested a number of factors, including previous experiences with police, race, and income levels. These all are shown to have a significant effect on an individual's perception. If the hypothesis suggested, the only accurate one that was predicted correctly in the end was that whites are more likely to be influenced by crime-related media than any other race. They're more likely to have trust in the police, and they're more likely to consider the police to be fair.
Previous works of literature led to these different conclusions. The first one being law enforcement, it's very important for them to be recognized as legitimate in the eyes of the public because it helps them basically do their jobs. The two main approaches in justifying the reasoning for the study and to know what people's public perceptions are was instrumental approach and procedural justice perspectives. Studies have mainly focused on individual personal experiences rather than the actual media as a whole and how that shapes the public. And Karanane basically focused on how those perspectives and beliefs and expectations kind of shaped that, and which was mainly found in media. The percentage of crime coverage in American news and media has increased drastically over the years, and the time devoted to criminal justice and crime is so high because that is what corporations have found to be the most profitable in their research. And these studies have found that crime-related media is also affecting other countries as well as ours. News consultants who have been around since the 1970s have shaped the way the content is packaged into American television and news. And crime is dominant in the entertainment industry as well, with nearly a third of the top 40 TV shows being somehow crime-related. And these shows are even becoming popular in other countries as well, with over 120 countries broadcasting American-made crime shows.
The study outlined a number of factors. Sample size was 4,235 California residents. The location was obviously California. The mean age for the sample was 44, meaning that most of the individuals were in the older age group category, which might affect the results. 43% of the individuals were male, 10% were black, 18% were Latinos, 7% were Asian, and 2.6% were other minorities, while 60% were white. Whites and Asians and others were all kind of categorized in the same group and omitted because they all had generally similar reactions to the dependent measures. Level of education was also taken into consideration to see if that somehow affected how people viewed crime-related media. Median household income was reported to be somewhere between $35,000 and $50,000. There was also a lot of political views that differed across the board. 41% of the individuals were Democratic, 26% were Republican, 33% were political independents or members of smaller parties. The tests that were used were surveys, and respondents were sorted into different groups, and they measured consumption levels of different forms of crime-related media, including crime dramas, television news, newspapers, a number of different other factors, and personal experience with law enforcement and opinions of the police.
The study shows that, the results showed that blacks do not hold a lot of trust in the police as a whole, and that they believe that their fairness varies depending on race to race. If someone was to be white, blacks believe that the white people get off a lot easier than they do. And excessive force for the black population, they believe that it was a really common occurrence in their community and their neighborhoods. However, white and Latino counterparts did not show a significant gap in their views of the police in terms of their in their effectiveness, but Latinos are still likely to feel as though police treat them less fairly and view excessive force as a major issue in their communities as well. It was also shown that income has played a very large role in determining the different people's beliefs, where in large income areas it was typical for them to believe that police were fair, excessive force wasn't a problem, like police were just viewed a lot higher and respected more in that area, while on the lower income, like people just below the poverty line or at the poverty line, typically showed that they believed that the police were unfair and that they used excessive force a lot in their neighborhood. And so it really showed the positive and negatives. As they conducted this research, they found that the education did not really play a significant role towards anything. Like, it didn't really matter if someone had a college degree or if they just had a high school-based level of education. It's still, they had the same opinions no matter what, just know where their neighborhoods were and income levels and such. Republicans, however, were found to be more confident in the police, and they believed that they treated people fairly and were less likely to believe in the problem of excessive force, while political independents were found to believe that the police did not treat people fairly and that there was a problem with excessive force. They were the complete and total opposite of the Republicans.
Results also indicated that if the individual had a history of victimization, household arrest, fear of crime, basically any kind of prior run-in with law enforcement, that it lowered their trust significantly, and along with their confidence in police. They'd also, if respondents have been victimized and under household arrest, they were less likely to believe in the fairness of police, or while those who were fearful of a crime and had been a parolee showed that they believed they had a higher belief in excessive force than people who just didn't have any prior run-ins with police or first-hand experience. It was shown that crime-related media sources influenced a person's confidence in police. Television news was shown to be one of the most highest-rated things to influence a person, and also reality crime TV shows such as Cops, America's Most Wanted, stuff that people perceive to be live action. However, in the end, it was determined that no measure of media interaction could directly correlate to the belief of excessive police force and how people viewed police in communities. Crime-related media only affects those who don't have first-hand with law enforcement and have no prior experience with run-ins with police besides traffic tickets or minor misdemeanors. In conclusion, it was shown that while viewing crime-related TV shows had positive impact and significantly influenced whites' confidence of police, blacks and Latinos kind of remained unchanged and didn't really affect them. Latinos were moderately affected in some studies, but blacks weren't affected at all. This remains consistent with past studies and findings that were reviewed before in the article.
The improvements that were found during this research was that getting an accurate representation of the effects of the media towards different viewpoints and sample sizes were not reliable due to the various forms of media that each individual was viewing and consuming along with their past life experiences. The article, the discussion board, recommended that the researchers refrain from focusing on the crime-related drama TV shows, as most people were well aware that these things were based off of fiction, even though there were people basically going at the headlines and what was the most popular and putting them into these crime shows to make them more realistic. It still did not have effect because everyone still was very strongly leaning towards it being a fiction thing, and so it didn't really affect people's viewpoints or change anything. And when looking at the newspaper consumption affecting opinions of the police, it was found that it actually had little effect. This was decided because news on the television stuff has a lot more drama. It's very fast paced. It's quickly, everything picks up fast, and they don't spend a lot of time going into the deep details of each story, while the newspaper tends to go into more detail until you find out that the positive and negative aspects of the police therefore basically just ended up neutralizing the reader's reviews.
The research could have included other aspects of police content, such as police volunteering for work, such when they come to like an elementary school and talk to people, and the quality of those interactions besides just being arrested and put into the criminal justice system. The study limited itself through the use of cross-sectional data, and future research could be strengthened by a better means of measuring media consumption. Basically, saying that instead of it being a generalized, how many hours per week do you watch TV, it could be more specified, like what news station do you watch, and see if that has any effects on an individual's attitude towards police. A larger sample size probably would give you more of a view, like a view of how demographics affect police perception. And it would also be beneficial to create a multi-level model, including community contextual level variables and containing things such as employment, social class, and police resources. So basically going more in depth than what we had. While the study was pretty in depth, there was to see if lower income areas with less police resources would affect the data any.
So then it was determined that the crime-related media did not really affect a person's perception of the police, and it was mostly related to their own personal experiences in life.